Hi, I'm Nicholas Lodge and would like to introduce you to my new Nicholas Lodge collection by Katy Sue Designs Blackberry and Oak Leaf. So this innovative mold has got obviously 5 cavities. So the cavities here at the bottom are to make 3 different sizes of oak leaves, both small and medium and large. And on the other side of the mold here, we have the blackberry leaves, which also you can use for vines, you can use for hazel leaves, hazelnut leaves, and also for copper beech as well. So this is actually a versatile veined or mold that you could use, obviously, during other times of the year as well. So this is the blackberry leaves that I'm going to start off with, and there are 2 sizes on here. So using the size guide, so the size guide comes with my Flower Pro book. So included with the book you have my size guide, and many of you have watched some of my other tutorials where you've seen me use this before. So when we make the leaves, we're going to use 2 sizes. For the small blackberry leaf, we're going to use a number 6 size. So this is just a regular number 6 size where we put this in so you have approximately 1/3 below the hole and 2/3 above the top. When we do the large blackberry leaf, we're going to use a number 7 small. So that means that number 7 just goes through the hole. So we have number 6 regular size and number 7 small for the large leaves. We're going to use here, this is flower modeling paste or gum paste. I'm actually using here the Renshaw brand. This is just the green straight out of the pack. You also, of course, could use white paste or petal paste and color it with like a gooseberry green or a sort of moss green color. So you want sort of just a neutral green because we're going to add darker color onto this. Once you've measured your little balls of paste, I'm going to put the small one underneath a little small container. This just stops this drying. We're going to then condition the paste. So for conditioning the paste, I'm going to take a little bit of white vegetable fat or vegetable shortening. Just going to touch my finger onto that, and I would just massage this through the paste to condition the paste. And again, in all of my other previous YouTube videos, I've shown how to do this. And we do have on Flower Pro, on our Flower Pro videos, which we have obviously many of those, there is actually one just designated to actually preparation of paste. It talks about different types of paste to use with my Flower Pro collection or my Nicholas Lodge collection. Obviously these leaves here you can make unwired, so if you were doing these for cupcakes and things like that, you can of course use modified sugar paste or rolled fondant, but generally for making these wired I would recommend using gum paste, flour paste, petal paste. So we're going to take the paste here, and so I'm going to just use a little corn flour, cornstarch in my, this is just a little bag here, and just going to just now make this into a little carrot shape. So you want to make the carrot shape approximately about 3/4 of the length of the leaf you're going to make. So you can see here, this is going to be the large leaf. This is the number 7 small size piece of paste. I'm going to then put a little cornstarch onto the obviously paste here. I'm going to put this down into the mold like so. All right, I'm just going to flatten this down just slightly with my finger, and then I'm actually going to use the back of my Flower Pro poinsettia. So this is my new Flower Pro poinsettia, and so this actually has a back veiner, and you'll see how I use this also for the back of the blackberry and acorn or oak leaves as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to use the smooth part of this almost as like a little press. So I'm just going to press this onto the paste here like so. So you see what that's going to do is going to actually sort of squash it into the mold. So it just sort of flattens it into the mold, just saves a little bit of time, okay? So this works really well for, as I said, flattening this in. I'm then going to take a cosmetic sponge. So typically this is the way that I do most of my, because what I want to do is I want to work towards the edge of the leaf. So I'm keeping this central area thicker, and then I'm going to actually just sort of work the, see with my cosmetic sponge, just going to work this to the edge of the leaf here. And I'm going to use my sponge and my finger. It doesn't matter if you're obviously left-handed, you do this way, if you're right-handed. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm just going to push in towards the middle here. So you can see how I've created a lateral vein, a central vein down the paste. You see how you have this slight vein into here. Now I found with some of my leaves I do, like for example the poinsettia, I actually put a wire into a carrot of paste and press it straight into the mold. With this particular mold I actually prefer to put the wire in afterwards. So now I'm going to take a 28 gauge green wire. You could also use white wire as well because it's going to be taped. And of course you would use this same gauge wire for both leaves, okay? Because blackberry leaves are fairly small and quite dainty, so you don't want to have them on too strong a wire. So I'm going to take some egg white here. So I'm just going to just dip my wire here into some egg white. So I'm going to put a little bit of egg white onto my wire. And I'm going to just then take my wire here and I'm going to thread the wire. Because there is a little ridge here, a little groove, just going to place your wire onto there and just going to push your wire into the leaf. And you want to just sort of feel it tickle your finger. So it wants to go in about 3/4 of the way up. So the actual wire is about 3/4 of the way up to the leaf. It's about here, the top of the wire, okay? Now, this is an optional step, but if you have the poinsettia, as I said, this is the back part of the poinsettia. So this is wonderful to use on my Flower Pro fern. You can use this also, of course, on this oak and blackberry leaf as well. Now, you'll notice here, there is a little notch. All right, we have this little notch here. So this is designed so you line this up with your wire. So in the case here, you put this at the top. So the top of the vena goes basically at the top of the leaf. And you just line this up so you can see here. Move this up a little bit in camera so you can see that the wire is going to be directly in that V shape. All right, so you can see the little wire there. So this means then when we press on the top of this, so you're just going to press on the top of this, this is going to vein your leaf. So when you take that off, you'll see how you'll have your vein there. All right, now if for example your vein was a little bit off, you can very easily just re-press onto there as well. So this is very easy to do, but you just line it up with the bottom and see how that's going to go right through the middle of the leaf. So remember, this optional step is not necessary, but if you do have the poinsettia back, this gives a nice, obviously, extra feature to the leaf. So now we're going to remove the leaf. So when we do this, we're going to flex the mold each side. Remember, we've got a little bit of cornstarch on there, so your leaf will come out, and here you can see you have a beautiful leaf. All right, so it's got a veining on the front. We also have veining on the back. Now, the veiner, your mold has got like little serrations on there, which I'm just going to emphasize a little bit more. So there are two ways to do this. We can work on the green part of your little mini pad, or you can work on the back of the veiner. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn the leaf over to the back side, which has got the raised parts. And with the needle part of my companion tool, I'm just going to go around the edge, just very, very gently, just right on the very, very edge here to make this little tiny serration, okay? And alternatively, if you were doing this onto your pad, we're going to be on the green side of the pad here. So you're just going to use you just do this right on the edge. And what it's going to do is just going to sort of emphasize the little serrations on the very edge. All right, so that's going to go onto the edge here. So you can see the edge of the leaf is going to have this nice serration. And then we're going to take your companion tool. With my companion tool, I'm going to just place the pointed end, the needle part here at the base. I'm also just going to make sure that you get that sort of characteristic, slightly heart shape. So just using the needle tool end just to emphasize, you see how you get this slight heart shape here. But you're going to just use the needle tool end here. And so you're going to pinch this a little bit like a slight V shape, like a taco shell shape. And then also you can add a little bit of basically shape to the leaves just by holding with your thumb and first finger and just bending the wire. Because the wire goes about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way into the leaf, this gives you this beautiful leaf. Now I dry this on crepe foam. This is a sort of bubble foam crepe foam former. So I just place this onto my crepe foam to dry. And you can see this will obviously give you the leaves. And you can see here the two sizes of the leaves. This is both the larger one I just demonstrated, and here we have the smaller one. You do have the option with blackberries of making also the blossom to go with the blackberries. So some varieties of blackberry, this will be pink, very, very pale pink. Some varieties, this would be white. Very similar to a buttercup. So in fact, if you just make this in the same as I'm going to show you the center, and you make it with dark yellow, you could turn this into a beautiful buttercup, which would be lovely like on a summer wedding. You can also make strawberry flowers. Strawberry flowers also come in white or pale pink. So this is almost identical to a strawberry flower. So when we make the flower, we're going to use some fine stamens. So we have 9 stamens. I'm going to take the stamens, just going to just tap those level. So you want to make sure that they're all sort of fairly level. Okay, and then I'm going to fold these in half. So I'm going to fold the stamens over in half here, like so. Okay, and then I want to measure these about 10 millimeters long. So I'm going to measure these. They need to be about 10 millimeters long. So what I do from the tip of the stamen to where I hold my thumb and first finger, so from here to here is about 10 millimeters. So I'm going to take a 28 gauge wire. It's the same wire I just used. And I'm going to take, this is third length wire I'm using, so standard length of floral of wire, you just cut that into 3 pieces. So you see how I've got the wires running through my finger here, so I have about half above the top. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take the wire, just going to wrap this around a couple of times like that. So you can see how you just wrap around. Just check that you're still about 10 millimeters long, all right? So you see you're still about 10 millimeters from the top part here. And then what I'm going to do here is just going to open this up a little bit, and I'm just going to just cut off that excess thread about 5 millimeters long. Don't cut too close to the wire, because if not you won't have any stamens left, because they're all like fly out. So just going to cut that. So you're going to just get rid of your little stamen threads. All right, so you can see here you've got your, so you've just wrapped the wire around. So this is a very similar technique. If you do have any stamens also that are a little shorter, just bring those up so they're all sort of around at the same level. I'm then going to just take another 28 gauge wire, because I want to just sort of lengthen this. So I'm just going to place this wire up against the base of the twisted wire here. And then I'm going to take some floral tape. So I'm going to use some moss green color. You could use light green, but usually for different flowers or different foliage. So this is a moss green color, so I've just cut this in my tape cutter, or obviously could use a pair of scissors for this. And again, in my Flower Pro videos, I've shown this obviously used. So we're going to take some half-width moss green floral tape. But you could use dark green for this. Going to stretch your tape a little bit. And then what I'm going to do here is just going to place this 28 gauge wire. So the 28 gauge wire goes right up against where we twisted the other 28 gauge wire around. And then you're going to then just take your floral tape, just going to go around like a piece of string just to attach the tape, and then going to just come down the wire like this. Okay, and then once you come down like this, you're going to then take a pair of tweezers, and with a pair of tweezers we're now going to open up the stamens. So you're just going to just open up your stamens like this. So they're going to form like a sort of a crown around the top here, like so. So this will give you your little crown of stamens. So now we're going to take some brown dusting powder. So this is just like a chocolate brown color. Going to put a little bit of that onto a napkin. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just dust a little bit of brown onto the stamen tips. So using here my brown dust, I'm going to just brush this onto the stamen tips. Now this is also where I mentioned earlier, if you didn't have yellow stamens, you could actually then just dust them yellow, and then you could add a little bit of brown onto the tip. But you see how you're just going to get this sort of soft brown color onto the edge of the tips here, of the stamens. I'm actually using from my Flower Pro, this is my Ultimate Filler Flowers. We actually have 9 separate YouTubes on using this amazing mold. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a number 3 size ball of paste. So I'm going to take a number 3. So this is going to be a number 3 size here. So it wants to just be a number 3 that just goes through, just through the number 3 hole. So number 3 is small. And we're going to then take just condition that just a little bit. So I'm just going to touch my paste with a little bit of vegetable shortening. Going to make this into a little ball. Going to put just a little touch of cornstarch, corn flour onto the paste here. All right, I'm going to just drop that into my cavity. And then using my companion tool, all right, so with my companion tool here, I'm just going to just press this gently into the center part here. All right, so as you can see here, this hasn't filled the mold. It's actually sort of only about half filled the mold. And you're just going to just flex your mold, and your little piece will come out here. So you see how you're going to have this little, and it's going to have all this sort of texture on it. All right, so this is really just like part of the baby's breath or part of the mimosa. So that's going to be, would be your center part. Generally just keep that covered, so it's sort of kept, so it doesn't dry out. I'm then going to just take a little tiny bit of green paste, the same color green. You can also use Super Bond, which is sort of a strong glue that I have in my collection, but as I said, you can also take a little bit of paste here. So just take a little tiny bit of paste, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just use my Dresden tool. All right, so my Dresden tool, and I'm going to take just a little bit of egg white, and I'm going to just sort of mix a little bit of egg white into with the paste here. So I'm going to mix up a sort of a glue. So the reason why I wouldn't use just like egg white or edible glue here is you want to have a stronger bond. So as I said, the Super Bond, which I've used in some of my other YouTubes, or as I said, this softened paste is usually the best way to go. So you see how you're going to just have this softened paste here onto your piece there. Just obviously wipe your end of your tool here. I'm then going to actually use the veining tool end, which is going to be the fine end, and I'm going to put some of this softened paste into the middle of my stamens here. So it's going to actually just put some of that into the middle of the stamens. See, so it goes right in the middle of the stamens. I'm then going to take my little tiny textured center I pre-made out. I'm going to use my pointed end of my companion tool, and I'm then going to just place that into position here, like so. So you see how that's just going to just be pressed into the middle, so you're going to get the texture in the center of the blackberry flower. Okay, so this is a nice way to make centers, and you can use these for lots of different other flowers as well. And generally just going to just clean this off. You can of course also keep this in a little container, and you can use this for different projects. So that's how we would make the center. And so once the center has made, generally just let that dry a little bit, and then we're going to move on to make the flower. So for making the flower, I'm going to use my Flower Pro Ultimate Filler Flower Mold. So this very innovative flower mold will actually make 24 plus different filler flowers, as shown on my 9 individual YouTube videos, and also my Flower Pro book, the instructions for making these. So obviously this is the small cavity I've just used for the center of making the blackberry flower. So now I'm going to actually use the larger of the forget-me-not cavities. So these are used for forget-me-nots, 2 different sizes. Also on my videos and in books show how to use this one for cherry blossoms, which is very similar to the technique I'm going to show you now. So we're going to take the number 7 small. So remember, this is being conditioned with vegetable fat shortening, and also addition of a little bit of egg white to give it elasticity. So we're going to now just make this into about a 20mm carrot. A little silicone mat is a good surface to work on when you're doing sort of like carrots and shapes like that. So just going to make this about approximately about 20 millimeters in length, okay? And then just flatten the end of this so it becomes a little bit like, almost like a little golf tee on the end. So it wants to be a little flat. I'm going to put just a little touch of cornstarch, corn flour onto the surface of that. And then I'm going to place this into the mold. So you see it just fits in the mold like here, like a little carrot, like almost like a little witch's hat. Now taking my Dresden tool, so I'm going to use my Dresden tool, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull from the inside paste, and I'm actually going to work this paste. So you see how I'm actually just pulling from the hat to the edge of the mold. So I'm actually filling this up level. So I'm actually pulling this level with the top of the mold because I need to stretch this quite a bit. So I need that thickness to be able to do this. Now the reason why I have such a long back on this is I just find it easier to have something to hold on to. It almost gives you like a handle, you see? So you're just going to stay within the cavity of the mold, all right? But you've got this you can just mold that a little bit. Just going to flex your mold and just going to pop that out. So you see it's going to give you basically your blossom shape. So we're going to deal with the back of this in a few minutes time. But you see you have something substantial to be able to hold on to. Because if we made it the actual size we need it, it's going to be obviously very tiny to hold on to. I'm going to use the back of my mini pad here, my flower pad. And using my Dresden tool, I'm now going to stretch the petals. So you see how I'm actually stretching these to thin them out. You see how you're actually stretching this out here like this, all right? So you see how this is why we want to fill the mold level, so you have enough paste there to give you to be able to make the flower the right size. So we're just going to work this out with the Dresden tool. So holding the Dresden tool flat, just onto your foam pad. I'm going to now take my companion tool, so this is my needle tool end, and I'm actually going to use this just sort of gently, just to give like little line texture. So I'm actually using the needle tool just gently on the soft side of the pad to give you this like almost like a texture to the petal. Just little fine lines onto here. So you see how this is going to give you your petal shape. Using then the ball tool. So this we call the companion tool. It will be your best friend, and I use this for so many different flowers. So using then the balling tool end, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to hollow out the center of the flower like this. But as I explained, if you made this in dark yellow, this would basically be a buttercup. Okay, so it's a very useful technique to know how to achieve. Now we're going to take the center that we made a little earlier. I'm going to take This doesn't have to be totally dry. Just going to put a little bit of egg white just around the very, very bottom here, below the stamens. And we're now going to then thread the flower center through. All right, you're just going to pull the flower center into the middle here, like so, and just sort of open out your little petals here to give you basically your little flower. And then you're just going to now just start to waste this down. So just going to just waste this down here. Now if you've just made this center, sometimes it will obviously, if it's totally dry, it's not going to come out. But as I said, if you do find it sort of moves a little bit, just press it back in if you're working on it soft. And so now you're going to just sort of start to work the paste down. And then I'm just going to use my scissors here. So I'm just going to cut the back of this. So I'm just going to make this about 10 millimeters at the back, okay? So just the total, so you're just going to just remove this excess paste. But just I like to have that little handle to work with, and then you can just sort of work the back of the flower down here. Don't worry too much about that being a little bit bulky, because it's going to have a calyx on here in a moment. I'm just going to give your flower just a little bit of shape here, and this will be how you would do your flower. Now once your flower is made, you of course could continue making you know, 2 or 3 of these, you know, to make your little flowers. As I said, you can make some a little bit bigger as well, a little bit more open, because obviously naturally in real life flowers, they become, you know, smaller, they open out. You can have some a little bit more closed up. And then you would take some green. This is the same color green I used for making the leaves. And what I've done here is I've just rolled this out. I've rolled this out on my pasta machine number 5 thickness, but obviously you could also just roll it out freehand, but nice and thin. I'm going to use a small jasmine calyx cutter. So this is actually an FMM jasmine calyx cutter. I use this on a couple of my projects in my Flower Pro book and on my videos. The Stephanotis, for example, and also on the cherry blossoms. And then what you would do here is you take this with your little companion tool, just going to pop this out. So I'm going to pop this onto a cosmetic sponge. This cosmetic sponge has a hole in it, so I'm just going to put this on the top. It's going to cup it like so. Taking a little bit of egg white. I'm just going to brush a little bit of egg white just in the sort of central area and about halfway down the little, like the 5 parts of the calyx. So just going to put a little bit of egg white there. Then I'm going to just take my flower and then going to just thread the wire through the middle here like so. And this just kind of come up. And this is going to just come around the back of the flower like so. And this will give you the little calyx around the back of your blackberry flower. So you see here the little calyx there like so. Okay, so that's sort of how we would make the little blackberry flowers. So we've made the leaves, all right, so we've got our leaves. These are obviously dry. We make your blackberry flowers. Of course, then you'd make your blackberries. So this is my nuts and berries mold, and this is obviously was in my first range of Nicholas Lodge collection. So there is a separate video, a YouTube video of how to actually use this, because this has got the blackberry, and this is what we use to make the 3-dimensional blackberries here. All right, so the blackberries, and here I've done one in green on the underripe blackberry. So if you watch that YouTube, that will show you how to make your blackberries, both ripe and underripe. This also has on it the acorns, the walnuts, the black acorn cup, and then hazelnuts as well. So those are all covered on a separate video. So first of all, we will assemble our leaves. So these are my blackberry leaves, and once these are dry, we would take floral tape. So we're using the half-width moss green floral tape. And what I need to do is I need to tape down about 1 inch, about 2.5 centimeters down each of the stems. So you would do this by starting off with your floral tape, about 2.5 centimeters down. Going to go around with your tape like this, and then you're just going to slide your floral tape up to the bottom of the leaf. All right, so this way you're going to get a nice start to your leaves. Now when we make blackberry leaves grow in 5 configuration. So you see this is a 5 configuration, or in a 3 configuration. So typically very much like a rose leaf. When you have the 5 configuration, you have 3 larger leaves and then 2 smaller leaves here. But you could also have 3 small leaves, you could have 3 large leaves, so just very much like a rose. So I'm going to just show you actually using just 3 large leaves. So I'm going to just take my tweezers here. So you tape your components, and about 1 centimeter down the wire, just going to bend one to the right, one to the left. So very much like a rose, except you have more of an exposed stem here. And then you're going to take the leaves here to the right and the left, and you're just going to just tape those together here like that. So you see how you'll have this sort of configuration of 3 leaves, okay? And then we're going to take your floral tape. Remember I said this is the moss green tape, but you could also use dark green tape as well for this, but this is sort of a browny green color. So I use this for peonies and for certain foliage here as well. But you see how you have your group of 3. So if you were going to do the 5 configuration, you would tape your small leaves, and then the small leaves would be attached sort of pretty much almost from here like this. So they're almost like coming out all from that central point. So I'm going to use a little bit of a foliage green. It's going to be almost like a base color here. And I'm going to use this. I'm going to sort of go already over the central area of the leaf, sort of in the middle area with this darker foliage green. Of course, you can also put gloves on when doing this as well. And so you're just going to just put this foliage green over the center of the leaf. You'll also do this on the back as well. So it's going to be, as I said, almost like our base color. So this is a little bit like your foundation in makeup. Okay, so this is going to be your foundation color. Alright, so it's going to go front and back. So this is like a forest green color. This is a darker green, and I'm going to use this color around the edge of the leaf. So I'm just going to sort of brush this around the edge, and also just in a stripe down the center of the leaf. So I'm going to just put this sort of slightly darker green highlight around here. So I'm going to just put a little bit of the darker green, a little bit of green down the center. And you would just repeat this down the back as well. So just a little bit of the darker green comes around the back of the leaf. But color, you know, blackberries like a lot of things, because, you know, when you go through into the sort of fall, autumn time, you know, the blackberry leaves are obviously going to have a little bit more browny colors onto them. So that will be your base color. So this is a plum color, and with a little bit of plum, I'm just going to use just a little accent of that, a little bit like how when I do roses. Going to just put a little bit of plummy color just down the very base of the leaf, about halfway down. Just generally just do this on the front side of the leaf. And then a little bit of chocolate brown. So obviously you can use separate brushes here if you're going to be doing multiples of these. And then a little bit of brown, just sort of here and there, because I want to just sort of hit the edge of this with just a little bit of chocolate brown, just here and there. So not all the way around. It's very much like when I do rose leaves, just a little like accent of the brown color here. You can also do that on the back of the leaf also. Okay. And that will give me my sort of coloring onto the leaves here. So here in my steamer, I'm just going to lightly steam the leaves. So I'm just going to just pass the leaves pass through the steam. So what that's going to do is going to set the color. Now for the blackberry, I'm going to show you a really fun technique of actually like burning little holes and bug bites into here. So what I'm actually going to do first is I'm going to take some vegetable fat. So the reason why I'm using vegetable fat is when I use the either a hot skewer or I use a stencil or wood burning tool, it will almost caramelize the sugar in the gum paste. All right, so I'm actually going to use a here, just keep a brush for this purpose. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of vegetable fat, just going to put that on the back of my hand. You'll need to do this on the front of the leaf. And so what I'm going to do is your hand, because it's warm, the vegetable fat will actually melt. And you're just going to rub over the surface. Now this is also an alternative that you can use for giving a glaze to leaves as well. If you didn't have, say, spray lacquer, you can also use this technique. So just going to brush over the surface. The only thing with this, it won't be permanent. Like probably after about 6 months, it will go a little bit dull. But as I said, especially if you were doing flowers for you know, something in a recent time, you know, you can obviously just do that. But you don't have to do this on the back. You're just going to do this on the front. So just going to rub that over with the vegetable fat there. But just keep a brush for that purpose. Now there are two options here. This is a wood burning tool. All right, so this is a heated tool, so an electric stencil cutter or wood burning tool. So you can find these online. So this is used for cutting mylar stencils. If you don't have that, you could use, for example, like this is just a sort of a kebab skewer. This is another skewer here. So sort of something like this could be used. And of course you can just heat this up in on an electric element, or you could heat it up in your gas flame on your stove top, okay? And so you want to basically heat this up or heat this up. But this is ideal because obviously you can just obviously use this. And then what we're going to do here is with this tool here, you're going to actually just like burn little holes. So you actually are going to just make little tiny, and you can see like it actually will caramelize the, it smells a little bit like candy apples, so you have this sort of caramel. And then you can make like little tiny marks on your leaves here. So this looks like the natural little marks you get. You can also, for example, burn that in a little bit longer, so you see how it looks like sort of a little. And then you can also come from the side here as well. So you actually come from the side here, and you see how you're going to get this sort of natural look on the leaf, you see? So it's a really, really fun technique to do, and you can use this on different fall leaves, autumn leaves as well, all right? So you can just sort of just make some little marks here, like this. And as I said, you can see, you can actually sort of like, so it looks like little caterpillars or bugs, because obviously in the autumn and fall time, the leaves start to deteriorate. And I use this technique on a lot of my autumn leaves, like maple leaves and things like that. But you need a little bit of vegetable fat on there, because what that does, it caramelizes. Because if traditionally, when we do most leaves, I'm going to use, for example, a spray lacquer on them. But if you put the spray lacquer on it, this won't basically happen. It won't burn through. I'm just going to put this through. So you see how you're just going to make the little holes into here. All right. So you see how you're going to get this sort of really, you can see it from the back there, the little holes and things I've done on the top of that. Okay. And then you can, to finish this off, you're going to take your leaf, and then what I would normally do is then just lightly spray it with lacquer. So you can just use some spray lacquer here, just lightly spray this with lacquer. So generally do this on a piece of plastic or on a napkin here. And I'm just going to just very lightly spray with a spray lacquer. So this is just a very light spray over the top, and this is fine to do over the top of the vegetable fat or shortening here. And then this will basically evaporate, and will leave your leaves here. So you can sort of see, once this glaze dries, you'll see how you'll have this sort of beautiful, as I said, this detail on your leaves. All right, so it's very realistic here, like that. Now when we assemble this, we're going to take some floral tape. So here I'm going to take my, this is going to be my group of 5 leaves. I'm going to use a 22 gauge wire. So this is going to give me a stronger wire. So I'm just going to add a 22 gauge wire here, about 5 centimeters down the stem. Just going to start off with my floral tape here. Just going to go around a couple of times here with my floral tape. And then I'm going to add in my blackberries here. So I'm going to take my blackberries. So these are my blackberries made in my flower pot molds. So I'm just going to sort of just add the blackberries here. So I'm just going to put my blackberries in here. I have also an underripe blackberry, because like of course in the early part of the autumn time, you have the blackberries that are just starting to ripen off. So this is shown, remember, on my separate video. I show how to do these. This is actually done in green and then dusted with a little bit of red color onto it. And then I'm going to put in my blackberry flower. And you can use your pair of pliers here, or you can be obviously, again, you can see here I'm going to bend this about 3 centimeters down, so you're going to have your little blackberry flower in here. Just to come around. You can just sort of obviously just twist this so that you get the, because I want to sort of visually sort of see the half ripe and half underripe look of that. So just bend that as needed, and then your other ripe blackberry. Remember, just sort of have these, so they're in like a little cluster, but you can do different groupings of this. I'm going to come down just a little bit further, and then I'm just going to add my little group here, which is going to come from the side here, like so. And I'm going to have this sort of come in slightly back on itself. I'm just going to just tape down with my floral tape here. And then once you come down with your floral tape, you can of course add as many blackberries and flowers and leaves as desired. You see how you'll have you can sort of obviously just bend this, so you see how you have this sort of very nice natural look to the blackberry. So you can just tape this as far down as you want to, and of course if this was going to go with other flowers or foliage. You know, you can obviously trim this to whatever length you want it to be, and just cut this off, or obviously wire it with other flowers, because this will look beautiful even with roses and flowers like that. So this is the blackberry leaves, obviously made in my new mold. So this is in my new, as I said, the leaf veiner here mold, and obviously great. As I explained in the beginning, you can also use this to make like copper beech. So the copper beech here was made, remember, in like a cream color, and then what I did is I dusted this with yellows and oranges, and actually a little bit of copper dust on there as well, just to give an iridescent look to it. But also hazelnuts and hazel are done like this. But you can also use this to make just a very attractive, like a vine. So when you're doing, for example, normal flowers for a wedding cake, you know, you could use this as like a trailing vine going down the cake. So it just shows that the versatility of the range, in that you don't have to think of this just to make blackberry leaves. You could use this just for, as I said, a foliage, or as I said, like in the autumn time as well. So I hope you will enjoy this and have fun making your blackberry leaves, your other leaves made with this particular mold. And I look forward to seeing you real soon.